Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here, returning to you tonight for this next album review. Hopefully you enjoyed this album review tonight for Post Malone's new record, F-1 Trillion, that I got a chance to check out for myself to see what I was going to think of this record. So I'm going to discuss what I watched, or what I listened to, I meant to say, for this new Post Malone record, F-1 Trillion, and let you know my thoughts on all 18 songs of what I listened to for this 58-minute record. So let's dive into this album review. Now it starts with Wrong Ones featuring Tim McGraw, and pretty much off to a good start. I really dig this track. I think with the style they were going for with this, Post Malone and Tim McGraw, it worked. And the harmonizing was the best part about this, and it sounded really good. So this is a strong track, 5 out of 5. Then comes Finer Things featuring Hank Williams Jr., which is actually a pretty strong track, by the way. It's a favorite of mine. I really dug this song for how it sounded, so I would give this a 5 out of 5 too. Anything with Hank Williams Jr. is going to be, of course, good. So it turned out to be really good. Execution-wise, it worked, this track. So it was a strong track for what it went for. 5 out of 5. I Had Some Help featuring Morgan Wallen was the best track on the record. Probably a personal favorite. It's still one of my personal favorite tracks that came out in May of this year. It was the first single for the record. It's an announcement, basically. I think he announced this record when Pour Me a Drink came out. But overall, it's getting a 5 out of 5. Then comes Pour Me a Drink with Blake Shelton. This one wasn't terrible, but it was kind of mediocre. I've grown to actually think this one is my least favorite now. It's not one of the worst tracks, but it's not one of the best. So this is a 3.75 out of 5. Have the Heart featuring Dolly Parton sounded really good. I really like Dolly Parton singing in this track, along with Post Malone singing in this too. Sounded really good. This track flowed very well for the harmonization and just musically, structure-wise, this track worked for what it was going for. So this is a 4.75 out of 5. What Don't Belong to Me is a regular Post Malone track, and it sounds really nice. And I really dig this one. So this is going to be something that a lot of people are going to really like this Friday. But overall, What Don't Belong to Me is a strong track, and I really dig Post Malone's vocals on this one. So 5 out of 5. Goes Without Saying featuring Brad Paisley. Great track, by the way. Definitely very strong. Really dig the harmonizing in this one. And I really dig how both Post Malone and Brad Paisley were singing in certain verses, and they executed very well with the overall structure of their vocals. So pretty much this whole song was my favorite. I really like how it sounds overall. 5 out of 5. Guy for That has unfortunately grown on me in a good way. So this track, I may have been a little too harsh with this track when I first heard it. But after repeated listens, it's not that bad. So it's going to get a 4.75 out of 5. It's pretty good, but it's not something I would come back and say is great. The repetition is a little tedious for the song and gets a little annoying. But overall, I think the track works for what it goes for. At least it's better than the Pour Me a Drink song. That one I'm not really a fan of that much anymore. So 4.75 out of 5 for Guy for That, featuring Luke Combs. Nosedive featuring Lainey Wilson actually sounds pretty good. I really dig Lainey Wilson's vocals in this. It did very well for the execution, just overall structure-wise with their harmonizing and vocal pitches. I think Lainey Wilson gave it her all with this one. Along with Post Malone too. This song sounded good vocally. So 5 out of 5. Losers featuring Jelly Roll. was a strong track. Really dig this one too. This is gonna get a good 5 out of 5. I really dug how it sounded overall, so this is a 5 out of 5. Then comes uh, Devil I've Been, featuring Ernest. Um, what I did like, and I'm gonna backtrack a little to the Loser song. What I liked about that track was Jelly Roll and Post Malone's high-pitched vocals in the track executing very well. That's mostly what I was gonna tack on to that song, but still 5 out of 5. And Devil I've Been featuring Ernest is a great track. Really dig the melody. I really like Post Malone's vocals and his falsettos in this track. It works very well, so 5 out of 5. Then we get to Never Love You Again featuring Sierra Farrell. This one's pretty good, but it's a little melodic. I like it, but it just depends on the mood I'm in, I guess, for this track. But overall, it's a 4.75 out of 5. Missing You Like This featuring Luke Combs is a pretty good song in its own way, but not one of the favorites for the record. But it's fine for what it goes for. So this is a 4.75 out of 5. It's a little weak, probably a tad bit weaker than Guy for that, but it's still good in its own way. California Sober is a strong track with Chris Stapleton in it. I really dig this track. I think overall it structurally plays out very well with the harmonizing, and Chris Stapleton sounded good vocally in this one. This is where I'll give Post Malone and Chris Stapleton props. They actually pulled it off with this one. 5 out of 5. Hide My Gun is a good track in its own way, not one of my favorites. I was a little disappointed because it was featuring Hardy, which I really like Hardy, but with this one, I wasn't really feeling it too much. I was a tad bit disappointed. I think it's a good song, but it's not one of the best songs I've heard. But overall, 4.5 out of 5. Right About You is going to get a 4.75 out of 5. I dig this track for what it sounds like, and Post Malone's having his own regular track for a country song, it works to a degree. So this is a 4.75 out of 5. Mexico featuring Billy Strings. I think this track is pretty good. It's got a nice harmonizing melody and violin work and everything with it. Nice country violin work and everything. And I think this track works to a degree. So give it a 4.75 out of 5. It's a pretty catchy tune. And finally, we get to Yours, a song that was teased a little bit from Post Malone, but it sounds really nice to close the record. And I would give it a 5 out of 5. It's a song that's an acquired taste to some listeners, but overall, it's not bad. So 5 out of 5. Overall, production, mixing, and execution wise, do I find this new Post Malone F-1 Trillion album to be better than I thought? Slightly. It's a decent record. It's not anything terrible. It's better than the Austin record, I'll tell you that. That one was kind of boring last year. I think this is a step up in a better direction for Post Malone. The only track I would say ruined the rating, a couple tracks per se, is Pour Me a Drink. Some of the 4.75 out of 5 songs, like Guy for That, Never Love You Again, Missing You Like This, Have the Heart. Have the Heart wasn't terrible, it just wasn't one of my favorites. Then you have Hide My Gun, Right About You, Mexico. So there were maybe a couple tracks that I would say I would come back to, like Wrong Ones, Finer Things. I Had Some Help, still a favorite. What Don't Belong to Me, Goes Without Saying, Nosedive, Losers, Devil I've Been, California Sober, and Yours. Those are the strong tracks I recommend for the record. Off the bat, this record is decent. It is not the worst record I've heard this year. It is better than his last album, Austin. and that's a good thing, because I think he needed something different for his genre style of music, and I think he pulled it off with this one in a way. Not in the best way, but it still is a step in the right direction for Post Malone. So for a score for me, I'm giving Post Malone's F-1 Trillion album a 7 out of 10. It's a decent record. Probably something I would be coming back to a lot. Depending on the mood I'm in. Basically, if I'm in the mood for a country record, I'll mostly come back to this record. But other than that, it's a decent record. I think it's not a good record, but it's decent for what it goes for. The only downside was the Pour Me a Drink song. That's the one that got quite a rating that I wasn't wanting to give this album a 7 out of 10. I was considering a 7.5 out of 10, but knowing that song, Pour Me a Drink with Blake Shelton, it didn't please me that much. So with that being said, 7 out of 10 for Post Malone's new record, F-1 Trillion. Hopefully you enjoyed this album review tonight, and thanks for watching.